The show is starting. The finest in underground television.
Ejection, an Ode, by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. This poem begins with an epigraph from the ancient ballad of Sir Patrick Spens. Late, late yestreen, I saw the new moon with the old moon in her arm, and I fear, my master dear, we shall have a deadly storm. Well, if the bard were weather-wise that made the grand old ballad of Sir Patrick Spens, this night, so tranquil now, will not go hence unroused by winds that ply a busier trade, or those that mould yon cloud in lazy flakes, or the dull sobbing draught that moans and rakes upon the strings of this Aeolian lute, which better far were mute. For lo, I see the new moon, winter bright, yet o'erspread with phantom light, with swimming phantom light o'erspread, yet rimmed and circled with a silver thread. I see the old moon in her lap, foretelling the coming on of rain and squally blast. But oh, that even now the gust were swelling, and the slant night shower driving loud and fast, those sounds which oft have raised me whilst they awed and sent my soul abroad might now, perhaps, their wonted impulse give, might startle this dull pain and make it move and live. A grief without a pang, void, dark and drear, a stifled, drowsy, unimpassioned grief that holds no natural outlet, not a tear. Oh, lady, in this wan and heartless mood, to other thoughts by yonder throstle wooed, all this long evening, balmy and serene, have I been gazing on the western sky and its peculiar tint of yellow-green, and still I gaze, and with how blank an eye. And those thin clouds above, in flakes and bars, that give away their motion to the stars, those stars that glide behind them or between, now sparkled, now bedimmed, but always seen, yon crescent moon as fixed as if it grew in its own cloudless, starless lake of blue. I see them all, so excellently fair. I see, not feel, how beautiful they are. My genial spirits fail, and what can these avail to lift the smothering weight from off my breast? It were a vain endeavor, though I should gaze forever on that green light that lingers in the west. I may not hope from outward forms to win the passion and the light whose fountains are within. O lady, we receive but what we give, and in our life alone does nature live. Ours is her wedding garment, ours her shroud, and would we aught behold of higher worth than that inanimate world allowed to the poor, loveless, ever anxious crowd? Ah, from the soul itself must issue forth a light, a glory, a fair luminous cloud enveloping the earth. And from the soul itself must there be sent a sweet and potent voice of its own birth, of all bright sounds, the soul and element. O pure of heart, thou needst not ask of me what this strong music in the soul may be, what and wherein it doth exist, this light, this glory, this fair luminous mist, this beautiful and beauty-making power, joy, virtuous lady, joy that ne'er was given save to the pure and in their purest hour, life and life's effluence, cloud at once and shower, joy, lady, is the spirit and the power which wedded nature gives to us in dower. A new earth and a new heaven, undreamt of by the sensual and the proud. Joy is the soft voice, joy the luminous cloud. We in ourselves rejoice, and thence comes all that charms or ear or sight, all melodies the echo of that voice, all colors a suffusion from that light. There was a time, before my path was rough, this joy within me dallied with excess, and all misfortune seemed but as the stuff whence fancy made me dreams of happiness. For hope grew round me like the clinging vine, and fruits and foliage, not my own, seemed mine. But now oppressions bear me down to earth. Nor care I that they rob me of my mirth, but oh, each visitation suspends what nature gave me at my birth, my shaping spirit of imagination. For not to think of what I needs must feel, but to be still and quiet all I can, and haply, by abstruse research, to steal from my own nature all the natural man. This was my sole recourse, my only plan, till that which suits the part infects the whole, and now hath almost grown the habit of my soul. Hence viper thoughts that coil around my mind, reality's dark dream. I turn from thee, and listen to the wind, which now hath raved unnoticed. What a scream of agony by torture lengthened out that lute sent forth. Thou wind that ravest without, bare crag or mountain tarn or blasted tree, or pine grove whither woodsman never clomb, or lonely house, long held the witch's home, methinks were fitter instrument for thee, mad lutenist, who in this month of showers, of dark brown gardens and of peeping flowers, makest devil's yule with worse than wintry song, the blossoms, shoots, and tenderest leaves among. Thou actor perfect in all tragic sounds, thou mighty poet, e'en to fancy bold, what tell'st thou now about? 'Tis of the rushing of an host in rout, with groans of trampled men and aching wounds. At once they groan and shudder with the cold. But hush, there is a pause of deepest silence, and all that noise, as of a rushing crowd with groans and tremulous mutterings, all is over. It tells another tale with sounds less deep and loud, a tale of less affright, yet tempered with delight, as Otway's self had framed the tender lay. 'Tis of a little child upon a lonesome wild, not far from home, but she has lost her way, and now moans low in bitter grief and fear, and now screams loud and hopes to find her mother near. 'Tis midnight, but small thoughts have I of sleep. Full seldom may my friend such vigils keep. Visit her, gentle sleep, with wings of healing, and let this storm be but a mountain birth. May all the stars shine bright above her dwelling, silent as though they watched the sleeping earth. With light heart may she rise, gay fancy, cheerful eyes, joy lift her spirit, joy attune her voice. To her may all things live from pole to pole, their life the eddying of her living soul. O simple spirit, guided from above, dear lady, friend, devoutest of my choice, thus mayest thou ever, evermore rejoice.
Here before you is an opportunity to plumb the depths of the mysteries that confound and intrigue us. A chance to ask the big questions. Dr. Hal is not concerned with questions of trivial matters or of facts that are easily gathered elsewhere. Dr. Hal seeks the questions that transcend fact. He stands before you, ready to take questions that used to be brought to wise and aged sages on distant mountaintops. These questions can now be asked from the comfort of your living room. No Sherpas required. Simply direct your favorite web browser to our new and simple-to-use website, AskDrHalShow.com, or click the Ask Dr. Hal button below our live Twitch broadcast. You will be spirited away to the magical Ko-Fee portal, where all you need do is submit your burning question in the handy message field, and assign a monetary value you wish to place upon it. Our stage ghost will then convey your message live to Dr. Hal, and he will answer in the manner that only Dr. Hal can. Don't worry, we never sell, share, or solicit using your provided email address. PayPal will ensure that your valuable love offering goes directly to Dr. Hal and the further maintenance of this show. Links to submit questions and more can be found at our website, AskDrHalShow.com. Do not let this opportunity to consult a modern-day oracle, a seer for seers, a man steeped in the arts, sciences, and esoteric studies, pass you by. We present to you, through the very miracle of the internet itself, the one and only Dr. Hal Robins, now making house calls.
I'm looking down the thing here and making sure all the sound is turned on. Hey everybody, how are y'all? Always on the lookout for gremlins. It's my hobby.
Oh, I'm not hearing sound.
And long-legged beasties.
I'm not hearing Gofflin.
Ooh. Hold on a minute. Let me check something here. Let me. Oh, maybe could it be Twitch? Hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. I think I found an issue. How about now? Try them now.
I'm hearing you. I don't. What about our pre-show chit chat? Is that coming through?
Can the audience? Can the audience hear us?
Hopefully not. Audience, please let us know if you can hear us.
If you can hear our pleasantries. And
it
okay.
seems as though the problem has been resolved. Very good.
Whatever it was, we never know what is. Oh well.
I knew what it was.
No, good. Thank God.
At least
It's
one
the
of us
new-
does.
it's-
That's good.
Yeah.
It's the new headphones. So in my OBS settings, I tell
Oh.
it to follow where the sound is being output to. It didn't know the sound was being output to my Bluetooth headset here. So
Very good. Okay.
I'm
So now
glad
it's
you
fixed.
instructed it. And
yeah, if it so yeah, whatever I hear, you hear, and vice versa. We're attached.
Dangerous.
well, whatever we hear and you hear, I hope that they hear.
Indeed.
Yeah,
Well,
well,
since
that's-
they did not.
Sustain interest.
That's how it's supposed
I'm glad
to
they
work.
told us. It's
No,
like
they
my
will.
podcast, my radio show. I look at the chatterbox because if they're not hearing or if they are hearing, they tell me right away.
Yeah,
Very helpful.
they'll
Well, indeed.
we hear them. We are the intercessors for you, Dr. Hal.
Hmm.
We are the ones who hear
Truly.
the audience, and then we relay these messages to you.
Mm-hmm.
And how about those messages, huh?
Indeed.
I do have one. I have one coming all the way
Let's,
over from Great Britain.
That's
Aw.
right. This is a dear friend of the show who's visiting the States, actually.
my friends across the pond. Oh, he's
Yes,
visiting.
indeed.
He made a local phone call to get
Where
into
is
us
he?
tonight.
Where is he? In
Now-
the U.S.
I believe he's visiting our friends in Chicago presently.
All right, that toddling town.
That's right.
I hope he's having fun. But anyway, it's a question from our friend Reverend Griffin, way
Right.
over in the UK. I forget where is he in the UK? Goff, do you remember?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm actually not sure. I'm
I know,
abysmal with geography. I must be perfectly honest with you.
I know he's somewhat above London.
That
Well,
sounds
maybe
right.
perhaps he can answer that question for us. I'm not sure if he
Indeed.
is. I'm not sure if he's actually in the audience, but in any event, let me go ahead over to that question, and Professor Gofflin will bring you back in here in a few minutes.
Very good.
Hello, Dr. Hal. Welcome back. I
And
have
now it
this
starts.
question. Now it begins. Now the rock starts rolling downhill again. Let's see. This is from our good friend Griffin, and it is. I didn't catch the cost on that. It was a $10 question.
Very good.
There we are. Should one go back for multiple attempts or always try something new, but only once?
Well, I see multiple attempts as a necessary thing to try. It may be the same each time you try, but there's no indication that it's the same at the other end that you're trying to reach with your attempts. Something may not have worked out well there, but if you only had given it one more push, you would find that you had achieved your objective. And it's also important to feel that you have done all you can when making the attempt, so that nothing comes back to you to suggest that you were too slack to succeed. That's why it is not necessarily the sign of insanity, as some will regularly tell you, to keep doing the same thing and expect a different result. Sometimes there is a different result.
I was just typing. I'm going to open straight to Goff. I wasn't able
very
to.
good.
Couldn't hit enter. So I figured, oh well, I'll bring us all back. Here we are. Hello, everyone.
We'll do it live. It's fine. Hello.
Sure.
It's always an adventure doing this. You never quite know what's going to happen or how. It is live theater. It's fun that way.
That's
Yes,
true.
it's essentially live TV, like in the old days of Playhouse 90, your show of shows on the Dumont Network.
Mm.
But you know what's really nice about it too is we are allowing ourselves to mess up, which is such a freeing feeling because you can't really do that in a lot of theater settings where it's like, okay, if you mess up, it's not a big deal. And it's just like how freeing that is. It's amazing. But anyway, Professor Gofflin, I believe you have the next question, and I will let you, whatever you choose is the question you'll ask. So over to you both.
Sounds good. All right, excellent. Well, let's take a look here. Let me shake the jar. One moment, please. Okay. I have here a question from Reverend Dr. Big John. It is a $10 question, and he would like to know, how does one achieve maximum whimsy?
As in whimsy,
Whimsy, yes.
WHIMSY. Well, whimsy, of course, is speculative, and it takes an area where one speculates and turns it into something that can communicate with someone else. A literary or dramatic work, but generated whimsically. It shouldn't be thought by this that it is uninformed or inane, although it may be. It depends upon whatever reservoir you synthesize and compose your whimsical suggestion or creation from. And it is something that others belittle because they consider that unless you've sweat blood to push the pen across the page, it can't possibly be as good, or it can't possibly be less than as good as something which you idly create in a moment, staring off into space, smoking your pipe if you have one. The essence of whimsy is the willingness to experiment and try different things, and to execute it, to put it into practice, is to have some faith in the process, which may undermine the idea that it is an idle creation of an idle moment.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Hal.
Thank you, Dr. Hal. Well, I think it's time for our first monster movie moment. We have one. We have one this month that we redid. We didn't like the audio on it, so we reviewed it and recut it and re-edited it and re-narrated it, and it's ready to roll. So, audience, this is your opportunity to get questions into the good doctor. We're here. We're once a month. You can do this.
This is but once a month.
As the way we did it before. There are some differences. The ones with the sharpest memories and eyes may be able to recall.
This is true. So this is one for the old timers in the audience.
Yeah, so it's not really one of our encores, but it's sort of a redo. So here it comes.
Yeah.
Our first monster movie moment. Hope you enjoy it, and we'll see you afterwards. Get those questions in.
You know, I suspect those men were not real archaeologists.
They seem to be motivated by less than pure scientific enthusiasm.
Not a single photograph was taken before they disturbed that sacrificial bone field. Not a single photograph.
Well, it'd have to be shot with an underwater camera by whatever light there was, but I don't even know if they got the swag back.
Yeah, they were not professionals. I think they call those grave robbers. I'm not quite sure, but
I think they might have been. have been.
Looters.
Well, don't we like grave robbers now, like Lara Croft and so on?
Looters. You know what happens to
It
grave
belongs in a
robbers.
museum.
They get
Grave robbers
attacked
from
by
outer space.
giant one-celled organisms.
Hmm.
That was those effects were actually very effective. We watched the movie. They're good effects.
Yeah, truly. I mean, and when you consider that the Blob had a budget of something like 100,000 versus this movie's only about $10,000, I think it was. That's pretty remarkable, actually.
In the
And it was in
excerpt we showed
pesos.
before, the blob chases the woman around the outer part of the house, the ledges. It's an arduous task to get away from it.
But does she manage? We don't know. Watch the movie.
You'll have to watch the film.
It's
That's
worth
why we
every
show you guys
second.
these things.
And may you have great enjoyment of it.
Don't let
Indeed.
black and white scare you away. Anyway, Gofflin, I'm going to pass the next question over to you, and I'll be back
right,
in a
very
few
good.
minutes.
Excellent. All right, Dr. Hal, I have here a question from a audience member identifying themselves only as some loser.
Hmm.
It is a $6 question, and
Mhm.
they ask, how can one amplify Slack, intensify it, or otherwise turn it way up? I'm looking to maximize.
Well, you are asking a question which is of crucial importance, and not the question that a loser asks. A loser resigns to the inevitability, as it seems, that one will never get what is rightly owed. But a striver, especially toward Slack, will not lose, at least will not lose the opportunity to believe that everything that could have been done to achieve the goal, in this case, Slack, has been done. But to prioritize it, it must be carefully dissected out from the enveloping strands, fibers, or particles of the conspiracy which surround everything. The result must be slackful to you and must not satisfy the conspiracy primarily. This is one of the ways we can detect false slack, which the conspiracy attempts to sell you by promising you that whatever it offers will bring you slack and end your slacklessness. But of course, being mere objects and not things which open the gates on golden hinges which allow slack to emerge, this is invariably unsuccessful. Like the grapes of Tantalus in the underworld, which looked tempting but would always retreat when poor Tantalus tried to get them, this is quite similar to conspiracy, false slack, and how you should know it. Be not dissuaded by the apparent impossibility of your task. Just to make the effort brings it closer and more close than you will know. Visualization and concentration is also important. Don't let your goal of slack be displaced by a minor goal, which might obscure it, as a small hill can obscure an entire mountain behind it from the right, or rather, wrong perspective.
Very good, Dr. Hal. I have a $30 question for you.
Oh, that's wonderful.
$30 question. Those
From
are always
whom?
nice to get. This is from Mob Me Addy, an old friend of the show. Always a pleasure.
Oh, he certainly is. Yeah.
And the question is one that is masked in complexity. Now what?
Very well.
The question is, now what?
What now is what stands on the foundations that were created momentarily or anciently previous to now. It is as inevitable as any result is inevitable from an action. And in the greater scheme of things, we must expect that we have to hunker down and let the terrible storm of ignorance, bigotry, and obnoxiousness pass. We must not be all that overwhelmed by boorish behavior, but we must recognize for what it is. And all these questions seem to be somehow tied together so far with a silver cord, in that what you need to do now is to pursue your own slackful needs and desires. This is the best insulation from a world in chaos and driven by the worst impulses. So, for now, we must expect human fallibility to cloud our horizons. Make sure that all necessary for survival is in place, including your mental survival and your aesthetic survival. This is significant, and those things are not diversions, but actually the essential business of life, according to the Church of the Subgenius, and according to the Ask Dr. Hal show. Let's see, that was a most generous contribution. So let me quote from The Wasteland by T.S. Eliot. Where to get into it? A rat crept softly through the vegetation, dragging its slimy belly on the bank while I was fishing in the dull canal on a winter evening round behind the gas house, musing upon the king my brother's wreck and on the king my father's death before him. White bodies, naked on the low damp ground, and bones cast in a little low dry garret, rattled by the rat's foot only, year to year, but at my back from time to time I hear the sound of horns and motors, which shall bring Sweeney to Mrs. Porter in the spring. Oh, the moon shone bright on Mrs. Porter and on her daughter. They washed their feet in soda water, et on se voit d'enfants chantant dans la coupole. Unreal city. Under the brown fog of a winter noon, Mr. Eugenides, the Smyrna merchant with a pocket full of currants, CIF London, unshaven, documents at sight, asked me in demotic French to luncheon at the Cannon Street Hotel, followed by a weekend at the Metropole. At the violet hour, when the eyes and back turn upward from the desk, when the human engine waits like a taxi, throbbing, waiting, I, Tiresias, though blind, throbbing between two lives, old man with wrinkled female breasts, can see at the violet hour, the evening hour that strives homeward and brings the sailor home from sea, the typist home at tea time, clears her breakfast, lights her stove, and lays out food in tins. Out of the window, perilously spread, her drying combinations, touched by the sun's last rays, on the divan are piled, at night her bed, stockings, slippers, camisoles, and stays. I, Tiresias, old man with wrinkled dugs, perceived the scene, and foretold the rest. I, too, awaited the expected guest. He, the young man carbuncular, soon arrives, a small house agent's clerk, with one bold stare, one of the low, on whom assurance sits as a silk hat on a Brentford millionaire. The time is now propitious, as he guesses. The meal is ended. She is bored and tired, endeavors to engage her in caresses, which still are unreproved, if undesired. Flushed and excited, he assaults at once. Exploring hands encounter no defense. His vanity requires no response, and makes a welcome of indifference. And I, Tiresias, have forsuffered all, enacted on this same divan or bed, I who have sat by Thebes below the wall, and looked upon the lowest of the dead, bestows one final patronizing kiss, and gropes his way, finding the stairs unlit. She turns and looks a moment in the glass, hardly aware of her departed lover. Her brain allows one half-formed thought to pass. Well now, that's done, and I'm glad it's over. When lovely woman stoops to folly and paces about her room again, alone, she smooths her hair with automatic hands and puts a record on the gramophone. This music crept by me upon the waters, and along the Strand, up Queen Victoria Street. Oh, city, city, I can sometimes hear, beside a public bar in Lower Thames Street, the pleasant whining of a mandolin, and a clatter and a chatter from within, where fishmen lounge at noon, where the walls of Magnus Martyr hold inexplicable splendor of ionic white and gold. Thank you.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you, Dr. Hal.
Thank you for that $30 donation so we could hear Dr. Hal do that. That was wonderful. All the way
Indeed,
around. Thank you.
yes.
Thank you
I
again.
haven't done that
Mommy.
one for a while. Elliot has good things, certainly, to say. Anyway, I thought the question was interesting. They all have been so far. What does the question queue look like?
It is growing, but we're going to give it a chance to grow more. We're going to give it a little more fertilizer, as it were. Audience, you know what to do.
Audience, this is your cue to
I
get in
knew
the
it
queue.
well. Mm-hmm.
And we're going to water it, and we're going to feed it, and we're going to call it George.
I was hoping you were going there with that
Oh.
joke.
It wrote itself. I couldn't, it had to go. It was like shaving a haircut. You can't help yourself. So anyway, but we have to give the audience an opportunity to get their questions in. We have a special guest. It's a piece that we found buried deep within some old rock and roll memorabilia. But yes, had to do some lovely evening digging to find this one. But in any event, we hope everyone enjoys it, and think of a question. Hopefully it will inspire you to put a question in that queue. You know what to do. co-feed.com/askdrhal, and that will get you to wisdom.
That's right.
All right. On that note, here comes our musical guest, and we'll see you in a few minutes.
Ah, the master at work.
A holiday message.
I love finding that stuff. It's boy, do we dig through piles to find things.
We do. We plumb the depths of
Well, we're still getting good comments from people who liked our Jane Mansfield violin performance
this is
at the
true.
last show.
It's we plumb the depths like those people stealing gold out of that tomb. That's what we do.
And ideally, no engulfing monster will show up. Still, you never know unless you
Yeah,
wait.
hard to say the way Twitch operates. I don't know.
Like
Yeah.
a copyright lawyer covered
Right,
in
yeah, hopefully none of those.
Well,
covered in tripe.
archive.org is having its problem.
It's true. It's true.
Copyright lawyer covered in tripe is my horror. Oh
Yeah,
well.
that's the
That
kind of
would
thing
be a
that
good one.
wakes you up in a cold sweat.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, we have questions. So let me go ahead. I'm going to ask the good doctor a question, and Professor Gofflin will bring you back in just a few minutes, and we'll let you ask
Very
the
good.
next one. So
Fine.
Okay.
here we go. There we are. Let me see, Dr. Hal. I didn't. I have one here from Dr. Xenofact, Reverend Xenofact. Let me
Oh, really?
bring it up. Yes, it is. It is a
Very
$15
close friend of the
question.
show.
Yes, a very good friend
Oh,
of the
very
show.
good.
He does nice things with us. Let's see.
Mhm.
It's a larger question, so let me bring it up and read it. Again, it is a $15 question. And it is, in a parallel universe where the internet we know never came to be, what would be the ideal format for the Ask Dr. Hal Show Home Edition? A call-in show? A videotape? Would there be a cable deal? Tell us of these incarnations in the infinite Haliverse.
Well, everything that is possible to be believed, is an image of truth, as William Blake said. And every atomic particle has the opportunity of randomness to turn one way or the other way to generate a whole cascade of infinite possibilities. And so, since these possibilities are infinite, and since some of their farthest extensions could not even be recognized or understood or appreciated by the human sensory apparatus and the human imagination, we have to look closer and think of what we might like to be the case, because that too will be represented in this theoretical multiverse. It might be best if we don't think about links, connections, or the internet at all. What if people get to come on a sunny day and sit in the shade of a colonnade and experience and hear the show in person, to put forth the questions and receive the answers, and to be shown the extras as theatrical performances done by skilled people, but without gadgets and contraptions entirely. This version of the show is so alien to what people can conceive that I put it there, because, of course, we could have far more intense connections and a huger audience simply by the caprice of the magic hand of fate. A poet we like on the Ask Dr. Hal show is Clark Ashton Smith. This one by Smith is called The Dragonfly. By the clear green river, one afternoon in early autumn, a dragonfly with crimson wings alit on the white thigh of my beloved. And ever since it flew, more fully have I known the loveliness and the transiency of days, and love and beauty burn within me like the piled leaves of blood and amber that turn at autumn's ending.
Excellent. Well, we have a question here from our dear friend, Reverend Dr. Billy. It is a $15 question. However, it does not appear to be a question. He
Well, we must
says,
tease out the interrogative dimension then.
this is very true. I will read as it has been submitted. Dr. Billy says, I'm stumped for a question this month, so just sending a little respect offering for the holidays. If anyone needs a question sponsored, I'm happy to do so. So that
Well,
sounds as though that is an opening for if anybody that's currently in the Twitch chat would like to submit a question. This is a golden opportunity presented by Reverend Dr. Billy here.
all right, we can do it that way. However, $15 is a generous donation.
Indeed.
So I will introduce at this point an abecedarian poem. What was the author's name? He was a newspaper man and needed space to fill in the paper. Alaric Alexander Watts. He wrote this back in the 1840s. It is called The Siege of Belgrade. In an abecedarian poem, each line begins with a different letter of the alphabet, and then the next line with the next letter of the alphabet. Also within the poem, each word begins with that particular letter of the alphabet. And so, that being in mind, here is Alaric Alexander Watts' poem, The Siege of Belgrade. As soon as I can remember how it starts. Well, this is embarrassing. I have to remember the first line. An awful army audaciously arrayed, boldly battered, besieged Belgrade. Cossack commanders cannonading come, dealing destruction's devastating doom. Every endeavor engineers essay, for fame, for fortune, fighting furious fray. Generals gainst generals grapple, gracious God, how honors heaven heroic hardihood. Infuriate, indiscriminate, in ill, jack-booted jackals jostle Jack, Jam, Jill. Kindred kill kinsman, kinsman, kindred kill. Labor low levels, longest, loftiest lines. Men march mid mounds, mid moles, mid murderous mines. Now noxious, noisy numbers, nothing, naught of outward obstacles, opposing aught. Poor players, partly purchased, partly pressed, white quaking quickly, quarter, quest. Reason returns, religious right resounds. Suwarrow stops such sanguinary sounds. Truce to thee, Turkey, triumph to thy train, unwise, unjust, unmerciful Ukraine. Vanish vain victory, vanish victory vain. Why wish we warfare? Wherefore welcome were Xerxes, Eximenes, Xanthus, Xavier. Yield, yield, ye youths, ye yeomen, yield your yell. Zeus's, Zarpater's, Zoroaster's zeal, attracting all, arms against acts appeal. Thank you, Dr. Billy. We'll see about that sponsorship business as we go on.
Indeed, and it seems as though the question has been asked in the Twitch chat. This is a question courtesy of Dr. Billy.
Yeah.
The question is from our friend Friar Quasar, and he asks simply, why?
Well, this question is traditional, and it has a traditional answer. And so this is what it comes of the sponsorship It reminds me of the old story about the man who was given 3 wishes, and he wished for a sausage idly, and then he had it, but his wife was infuriated with him and said, "Why did you waste one of our wishes that way? I wish it was on the end of your nose." And so it was, and they had to use the 3rd wish to get it off the nose. So this may be a similar opportunity which was trivially wasted. On the other hand, the answer is as profound as the question. The question is why, and the answer is because.
Profound.
Hey, Sarah.
Well, everything that happens has a cause.
This is true. I mean, it only follows.
I fell down a self-help cult rabbit hole this past week watching videos about self-help cults and so forth.
Which
And
cult
Do
was
we
that?
need to stage an intervention?
Well, no, it's the ones that do that sort of thing where you take responsibility for everything in your life that goes wrong. It's all my fault. And well, I know that feeling because I produced the Ask Dr. House show. It usually is my fault, but you see, I didn't have to spend thousands of dollars for that outlook. It comes perfectly naturally.
He just had to become the producer, that's all.
Right. So anyway, but we're proceeding along very nicely. We have a person came up with a question, and I pushed the wrong button, and I expected it to come up as Hal and Gofflin, and all of a sudden it comes up the 3 of us, and I'm I don't have anything to say. Oh well.
Hoisted by your own stream deck.
Usually, usually I don't get the deer in the headlight look, but that was just like, I didn't really expect that to happen. So, but I have a salve for that. We have another musical guest tonight, one of very seasonal appropriateness, and an old friend,
indeed,
an old friend of the show. Speaking of our friends in tight pajamas, I saw hundreds of beavers.
my new favorite movie.
That is
I heard good things about it.
Delightfully odd. If you have not seen that, you really should. And there's a reason why I think of that when I think of tight pajamas. They did a music video on furries, and boy, if
The Squirrel at the End of the Bar, it was called, and we ran it.
We did. We'll see. We'll run it again. I'm sure it's a very, very good video. Yeah, Hundreds of Beavers is definitely a furries movie. If you like furries, you will love Hundreds of Beavers because it's every costume animal known to man. It's a beautiful thing.
No, not just beavers. Huh?
Oh
No.
yes, no, there's rabbits and raccoons and
Skunks
All right. Well,
yeah.
Waiting to collect its audience.
Yeah,
Polecats,
an amazing movie.
woodchucks. Mm-hmm.
But tight pajamas, seasonally significant audience, get your questions in. We have plenty of time. We got plenty of room. We would love to enlighten you this evening. So spend a couple of bucks, get enlightened. Where else can you do that? Right? Where
what better
else?
way to spend a Sunday night?
Better way to spend your money
That's right.
on a Sunday night.
Unfortunately, I don't have to answer either of those.
So on that note, we'll see you here in about 5 minutes. I'm so glad that Krampus has entered our culture.
Yes, and those sentiments are elevated and correct.
And It's actually kind of an interesting legend. What do we do with the bad children? We don't just put coal in their
Yes,
stockings.
not give them presents, but of course the Germans are more thorough.
There's always I think I saw someone post that yearly thing about wrapping a empty box, and every time your child misbehaves, throw it in the fire and tell them it was one of their Christmas gifts. That was always
Mm.
that yeah, that's kind of mean, isn't it? You got to
You
have a
said
sense
it.
of humor for this. I wouldn't do that to a child, of
Yes,
course.
of
That would
course.
be
Of course.
traumatizing, but it's certainly fun to
Right.
laugh
They'd,
about it.
they'd remember. They'd get their revenge in the fullness of time.
Oh my God, they'll write a book. They'll publish
Hmm.
it. They'll besmirch your name.
And what a bestseller it will be.
Anyway, I have a question for you from our very good new friend, Mrs. Disappointed Scientist. I believe this is the second month that Mrs.
Hmm.
Disappointed Scientist has entered a question to us. So our brand new old friend, is there a Santa Bob? And if he exists, does he give out more than just coal to health insurance CEOs? Oh, there's an appropriate question.
Well, Bob is the avatar of Slack. Bob gives away Slack. Slack is manifested in all things which produce Slack, including conceivably, theoretically, things that you get for Christmas. Of course, some things that you get from Christmas might subtract Slack if they're things that you don't want, can't get rid of, and yet must pretend to acknowledge with pleasure. So the whole Santa Claus business of donating presents to strangers has this peculiar codicil attached to it. It's best to give to those you know what you know from what you know about them, they will appreciate and approve. You could, of course, take the face of Bob and draw a Santa Claus hat and beard on it. I believe this has often been done. Any image may be Santa Claus, but does that change the nature of the Bob face looking out from this elementary disguise? I think not. The myriad dots of Bob signal that there are a myriad avenues toward Slack. And one must not expect Santa Claus to be Bob. They are in charge, let us say, of different departments. But still, an interesting speculation. By the way, how was that question sponsored?
I believe that was a $9 question, Dr. Hal.
Well, that's very good and very generous. So we thank you for that.
Very good. All right, Dr. Hal, I have another question here for you. It is from our friend, the Great Bloviator.
Hmm.
It is a $30 question.
Oh.
Very generous indeed. The Great Bloviator asks, Hey, Dr. Hal, I need some advice about a Christmas present for a pal of mine. He's a humanzy and usually pretty chill, but if something strikes him the wrong way, he can go totally ape. What do you
Uh-oh.
think of a humanized mouse as a gift?
You mean an actual mouse that has human characteristics, some sort of mutation, or which is familiar, or an image like Mickey Mouse, of an anthropomorphized mouse? And there are many characters, Jerry Mouse, and many statues, idols, effigies that can be obtained. I'll assume that that's what you want to give to your friend. Well, your friend he seems to be a volatile sort, and his ape-like reaction may occur at any time. But he is your friend. You are a subgenius. Could it be that he is a subgenius? Therefore, he will require what all subgeniuses require, something for their slack altar. Diagnostically, all subgeniuses have somewhere in their habitation a slack altar where they may be odd little statues of things. A statue of an anthropomorphic mouse would fit right in. How could this cause a simian eruption of primate violence? My thought is, and you have asked me, that it will not. Rather, he will wrap his chimpanzee-like hands around it and lovingly place it on his slack altar. The phrase slack altar, by the way, comes from Dr. Philo Drummond, one of the two founders of the Church of the Subgenius. This poem is also by Clark Ashton Smith. It is about an Atlantean deity known as Ogopolis, and Atlantis was the greatest island of its archipelago. The entire Atlantean civilization was known as Poseidonis, since their principal god was Poseidon, the god of the sea, and also the god of earthquakes, which turned out not to be particularly lucky for the people of Atlantis. In billow-lost Poseidonis, I was the god Ogopolis. My 3 horns were of Similor above my double diadem. My one eye was a moon-wan gem found in a monstrous meteor. Incredible far peoples came, called by the thunders of my fame, and fleetly passed my terraced throne, where Titan pards and lions stood, as pours a never-lapsing flood before the winds of winter blown. Before me, many a chorister made offering of alien myrrh, and copper-bearded sailors brought from isles of ever-foaming seas enormous lumps of ambergris and corals intricately wrought. Below my glooming architraves, one brown eternal file of slaves came in from mines of Chalcedon, and camels from the long plateaus laid down their sard and peridos, their incense and their cinnamon. But now, within my sunken walls, the slow, blind ocean serpent crawls, and sea worms are my ministers, and wandering fishes pass me now, or press before mine eyeless brow, as once the thronging worshippers.
Beautiful, Hal.
Beautiful. Thank you, Hal.
Well, audience, first off, I wanted to remind you that after the show, we have our after show chat and meet and greet, so you can come and hang out with us and ask more questions and talk to us
meet
directly.
And greet, chat and all that.
We can actually
Chew the
see
fat,
you,
as it were.
Chew the fat.
Yeah, hang out with us. You know, we're usually wired after the show, so we all sort of, I crunch
There's
all
not
the
the
hairspray out
opportunity.
of my hair, and
There's actual opportunity for conversation and not just the submission of a question and getting an answer. So there is that for those who care for such things. What does our question queue look like at the moment?
It's pretty good. We're going to go to our second monster movie moment here in just a moment. But I did want to throw out that link to the audience for the after show chat and remind them, give us a couple of minutes because we have to shut this down and bring the other one up. So if you go out there and we're not there yet, it gets a little weird. So give us like 5 minutes before you
Just
come in.
Give it 5. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But
Go.
you come and visit.
Bio break, make a sandwich, come on in, and we'll be ready. We'll be dressed. We'll be in our smoking jackets, and, kicking back, drinking a martini. looking
Right.
cool.
Ideally.
Yeah. Anyway, I have another monster movie moment for you, and actually,
Excellent.
this is another redo. We decided there were two of them that we liked, that we wanted to go back and review them and take another look at them. So this one has been completely redone, and it looks great. So here it comes, and
It
we
also
will.
contains things not found in our first presentation of it. So it is somewhat different and expands upon our earlier monster movie moment from many shows ago.
Indeed.
Now, I don't want to give too much away. I really don't, but I realized something today in looking at it. Do you realize that if you merely removed the coloring off of the clothing that they're wearing, they would actually simply be completely naked? That the clothing is actually just drawn on. It's
Yeah,
merely a
yeah,
formality.
it's exactly. It's really just some thinly veiled excuse for nude human bodies to be
And
drawn.
those human bodies are represented admirably, though they may begin with the rotoscope, the dynamism of them on the screen. Oh, well, you shall see.
Not to give away anything, but I just actually I'm trying to titillate and tantalize the audience with
The
what?
excerpt in itself may do, despite the presence of ungainly, menacing monsters.
It
Live
just
nude cartoons.
it comes this close to me having to put Dobbs heads over everything
Hmm.
to
But we wouldn't do
to
that.
protect us from
Never.
the Twitch robots that will say no, no breasts, no breasts, no nipples.
Hmm.
Can't show
Hmm.
nipple.
That would be unseemly.
Even nipple sounds like a naughty word these days. But anyway, on that note, here we go. Audience, get those questions in. We'll see you when we come back.
The painter
Interesting.
of light.
That's right. The painter of light was a painter of fire and ice before.
Yes,
I
or
thought that was an interesting factoid.
painting light, Lite, perhaps.
That's true.
The cozy gemucht light house with the golden glow over the snow. Was a different stretch from battling cavemen and slimy monsters.
True, true.
A step backwards, in our opinion.
Very good. Well, Dr. Hal, I have here another question for you.
Mhm.
One moment, please. Ah, there it is. This is from also from the Great Bloviator.
Oh,
This is a $6 question.
very good.
And he asks, Dear Dr. Hal, is Bob palpable? Signed, Swami Touchy Feely.
Hmm. Well, it was said of Bob in the old days that he had a firm handshake, which once having received, one would not forget. Not that he'd be one of these characters who would squeeze your hand until the bones cracked, like, for example, the cartoon character Bluto. But Bob is to be apprehended whether physically present or only spiritually present. One might argue that Bob is palpable as long as there is a Bob head in the vicinity. The image or any other type of reproduction or representation that may be touched, palped, felt, just as the actual person of J.R. Bob Dobbs, the saint of sales, may once have been to those who knew not his astonishing destiny. And recently in the Church of the Subgenius, we discovered something extremely disturbing to those who have been involved in it for so long, which is that we discovered that the bob head, as we know it, is actually based on a piece of a photograph of an actual person who did pose for clothing ads of the 1950s. In fact, all the stuff we thought we made up, in fact, turned out to be true. There are many subgeniuses who recoil in distaste from this actual Bob, who looks just like the face. Although when they removed the face to make it clip art in the Dallas, Texas telephone directory for Western Bell Systems, they cut out some of the double chin which the hearty middle-aged Bob had, making him look perhaps younger, a flattering move. They call it the lifestyle lift these days. Anyway, that Bob has, according to actuarial studies, departed and sleeps with his ancestors. Unless Bob, like Tarzan, somewhere along the way met someone who granted immortality to him. Tarzan had to explain this again and again to people who said, "But I used to read about you when I was a kid, and you're about 20 years old." And then he would have to say, "Well, there was this witch doctor," and so forth and so on, and make that explanation. We can't know all of the goings and comings of J.R. Bob Dobbs, but we can judge from the effects what is the likelihood of every manifestation of the cause, the palpable reality of Bob.
Very good, Dr. Hal. I have a question here from Reverend Dear Friend, and I'm going to double their question. This is a $10 question, but I am going to personally make it a $20 question because it is something that I want to know myself. The question is,
I hope I can satisfy that wish.
Isn't it possible that time is circular rather than linear?
Well, it has always been speculated, and then came the idea, championed by Goethe and others, of eternal reoccurrence, that everything you're doing now will be duplicated by a future you eons from now. As the universe pulses, it not only expands but contracts. It not only goes out but in. And are we somehow mystically and spiritually connected to that otherness? That is, of course, something beyond our current belief in knowing. I would say we should pay attention to the universe we have before we give too much thought to other universes, not just other worlds and suns, but all the various appurtenances of our extra destinies and fates. Besides, one may not need to wait the entire time if it is possible to travel on a vector of probability to a nearby alternate universe so close in every way to ours that we really can't tell the difference. Only such a side slip seems to explain some of the things that happen. But yes, many people, much smarter than I, have speculated that everything does happen over and over again. And so it's important to get it right, because we don't control it then, but what we do now will be duplicated in the future. Along with this, I will say a poem by Clark Ashton Smith, which somewhat touches on this thought. The Last Oblivion. Not while the woods are redolent of spring, or scentless immortelles of autumn blow, shall I evade your loveliness, or know surcease of love, and love's remembering. But, haply, wandering worlds and cycles hence, through unforeseen fantastic avatars, I will forget you in the future stars, and take of time an alien recompense, till in some strange and latter planet wrought with molten shards and meteor dust of this, my hand shall pluck an unsuspected bloom that lifts again the scarlet of your kiss, and I will muse and linger, knowing not the love that perished like a lost perfume.
Ah, a stirring recitation, Dr. Hal. Thank you.
Anything by Clark Ashton Smith. It's so like,
I'm
I've discovered him kind of through you. I wasn't terribly aware of him until
Have you been reading his fiction?
I have not had a chance yet, but you've exposed me to some of his poetry, which is real good stuff. And then, of course, the Garden of Adamfa, which you did a
that was
reading
one of them.
Oh man, that's a amazing piece. I have that audio bit. We should make some arrangements sometime to get it played to the audience. It was a beautiful thing.
Yes.
Full reading of that. Amazing. But
well, I've performed some of his shows on my Radio Valencia podcast, and also made recordings for a pseudopod of some of his stories.
Gotcha. Oh, you have more stuff on pseudopod of Clark Ashton Smith?
I believe so. I believe I have the Vaults of Vombus, one of his most notoriously horrible stories. On my radio show, I did the Dark Eidolon, which is also pretty nasty. And one of the worst ever is The Dweller in the Gulf. I don't think I ever recorded that one, but they're all worth exploring, I think.
Yeah, if you like Lovecraft, it's everything I've heard so far is just delightfully dark. And
he and Lovecraft were kind of on the same page, and Lovecraft has referred to Smith, even in his stories, referred to his sculptures and paintings, which were also of an unusual nature.
Oh, interesting. Well, we have more questions, Dr. Hal, but audience, you're not getting off that easy. We have room for more. So get your questions in. We will answer them tonight. We've got time. We've got all the time in the world.
Questions are like Jell-O. There's always room.
Absolutely. So, audience, get those
always
in.
Room for dessert.
And let's see. I think, Professor Gofflin, I think you have a question for the doctor.
Indeed, I do. This here is a question from our dear friend, Dr. Penny, and it is a $20 question. And she asks, how much does anticipation affect outcome?
Well, it affects your reaction to the outcome, which is a part of the outcome. So at least to that degree, it does affect the outcome. As for whether wishing something was so makes it so, that is a different matter. And it is in the realm of magic, where we hope to achieve by not being there something which will be of benefit to us. There is white magic, which works in accordance with the principles of the universe, and black magic, which intends to countermand those principles for a selfish object. And very thin is the barrier between them. You may divine the future from some magical operation, but if the response is not what you like, then you may change the setup so that the answer that you receive has now been changed by you to what you want. This is a transition between white and black magic. But it never hurts to wish for something. This tells us ourselves what it is that we want, and helps us concentrate and visualize more clearly. And then our response from the cosmos may not be what we were expecting or even wanting, but it might serve us well. And our response, if positive to that, will be a positive part of the result. This is from one of T.S. Eliot's plays. Children's voices in the orchard, between the blossom and the fruit time, golden-haired, crimson-haired, between the green tip and the root, black wing, brown wing, hover over. 20 years and the spring is over. Today grieves, tomorrow grieves. Cover me over, light in leaves. Golden head, black wing, cling, swing, spring, sing, swing up into the apple tree.
Beautiful, Dr. Hal. I have a $23 question, but it's a statement. And it is...
Well, imagine how it would look with a question mark at the end of it.
Fun via intelligence rules?
I only heard part, and I think some of your words are dropping out. I see your lips moving, but I don't hear the entirety of what you say, so I'm going to have to ask for you to repeat the question.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Can the audience
hear
me
you,
okay?
yes.
Okay, good. All right. The question, or I'll read it as a question, fun via intelligence rules?
Ah, okay. I guess I didn't hear the fun part.
Fun.
Okay, fun via intelligence rules. Well, of course, intelligent fun rules over
and that was for
$23.
Fun. That was for $23, Dr. Hal.
Yes, I understand that and appreciate it. Yes, it is true that fun rules via intelligence. That is intelligent fun. And the reason is that it has many more dimensions and repercussions than unintelligent fun. Even slapstick may have a subtle character, and the more subtle, the better. The reason is that we humans have more ability to perceive and understand than we know, since we represent ourselves as the point of consciousness in our minds. But the mind is larger than that particular department and contains an entire computing engine which labors tirelessly to help you get to where you want to go. And if you exercise as much of your intelligence as you can, you will definitely have a more varied return. On the other hand, there's a caveat to that, and that is that maybe you don't want any of these exotic spices and flavorings in your result. Maybe you'd be more satisfied with a plain, ordinary, healthy animal biological response. In that case, you are still not out of luck because you have the editing function. Now you can bring the consciousness point into play and slice out those parts which detract from the experience that you are seeking. What was the amount from this question again?
That was a $23 question, Dr. Hal.
Ah, all right, very well. Let's see. Gus, the Theatrical Cat by T.S. Eliot. Gus is the cat at the theater door. His name, as I ought to have told you before, is really Asparagus. That's such a fuss to pronounce that we usually call him just Gus. His coat's very shabby, he's thin as a rake, and he suffers from palsy that makes his paws shake. Yet he was in his youth, quite the smartest of cats, if no longer a terror to mice and to rats. For he isn't the cat that he was in his prime, though his name was quite famous, he says, in its time. And whenever he joins his friends at their club, which takes place in the back of the neighboring pub, he loves to regale them, if someone else pays, with anecdotes drawn from his palmiest days. For he once was a star of the highest degree. He has acted with Irving, he's acted with Tree, and he likes to recount his effect on the halls when the gallery once gave him 7 cat calls. But his grandest creation, as he loves to tell, was Fire Fror Fiddle, the Fiend of the Fell. I have played, he will say, every possible part, and I used to know 70 speeches by heart. I could improvise back chat, I knew how to gag, and I knew how to let the cat out of the bag. I knew how to act with my back and my tail. 1 hour of rehearsal, I never would fail. I'd a voice that would soften the hardest of hearts, whether I took the lead or in character parts. I have sat by the bedside of poor little Nell. When the curfew was rung, then I swung on the bell. In pantomime season I rarely fell flat, and I once understudied Dick Whittington's cat. But my grandest creation, as history will tell, was Fire Fror Fiddle, the Fiend of the Fell. Then, if someone will give him a tootful of gin, he'll tell you how he once played a part in East Lynne. At a Shakespeare performance, he once walked on Pat when some actor remarked on the need for a cat. He once played a tiger, could do it again, which an Indian colonel pursued down a drain, and he thinks that he still can far better than most make blood-curdling noises to bring on the ghost. And he once crossed the stage on a telegraph wire to rescue a child when a house was on fire. And he says, now, these kittens, they do not get trained as we did in the days when Victoria reigned. They never get drilled in a regular troop, and they think it is smart just to jump through a hoop. And he says, as he scratches himself with his claws, well, the theater's certainly not what it was. These modern productions are all very well, but there's nothing to equal, from what I hear tell, that moment of mystery when I made history as Fire Fror Fiddle, the Fiend of the Fell.
Oh, I love that one. Thank you, Hal.
I don't know if that was in the musical Cats or not, but it probably was, but impossible to hear because of the sound.
I have to tell you how it warms my heart to know that I'm not the only one who hasn't seen it. Thank you, Hal.
Yeah.
Oh,
I haven't.
Well, I never saw that or a chorus line.
it was the last thing we saw in the theater right before COVID happened.
Oh.
Sorry.
So we had to live with that for a while.
I have seen bits and clips out of it, and it should never have happened.
How about the movie where by computer animation they gave Taylor Swift a tail and so forth?
And so forth, indeed.
That was laughed out of the theaters, I believe.
It was an abomination before God, is what that was.
Well.
It was the island
visual
of
effects.
Exceptionally hard to get that result, to make a movie that bad.
It was the island of Dr. Moreau gone sideways. It was just
Yeah. You could edit those two together, perhaps.
There were some interesting choices made artistically, that's for sure.
It was another visit to Uncanny Valley. It was just wrong
Yes.
It,
Yes.
Oh, well.
And
never
people give
let,
Ralph Bakshi a hard time.
never, the death of everything is when the bean counters get involved and they start saying, this will make money. And
Yes.
Mhm.
don't ever let bean counters get involved in your artistic project. By bean counters, I mean accountants, by the way. Just to be
Yes.
clear in my vernacular. Well, we have spun those wheels, Hal. Let me
To know
spin them one
the
more time.
cost of everything and the value of nothing.
Yeah. And it's all magic. The thing that I had to learn when I took accounting is it's not mathematics, it's religion. You have to believe. You have to say that this money that doesn't exist, when I put it over here in this column, all of a sudden has value. Really? That's so cool. You just have to believe that there's
Well, we
money
must
in that
wait for
column.
such metamorphoses to occur instantaneously and potentially disastrously with the advent of Bitcoin.
It's horrendous to look at this sometimes. We could either have a show that is worth millions of dollars or a show that is absolutely worth nothing. And as far as the IRS is concerned, we have a show that's worth absolutely nothing.
That's correct. Yeah, if anybody from the IRS is listening, we have nothing.
We have
However,
nothing.
we are, yeah, look at us poor waifs.
look.
We are just clothed in rags. However, we do have, it appears, one final question in the queue.
The last question.
A
We have one copy?
last question. No, yeah, we've got one here from Reverend Dr. Les.
Oh dear. Okay. That must have come in earlier and we didn't see it. How did we both miss it? Well,
I'm not sure.
Two heads are better than one. Just ask the Hetzel twins.
Should we flip a coin?
Professor Gofflin, go ahead and take it, and we'll come back to this screen
All right.
when we're
All
done.
right.
Sounds
Oh.
very good. All right, Dr. Hal. Well, the question from Reverend Dr. Les is a $6 question. And he asks, where the hell did the day go?
Day dwindles, drowning, and at last is gone. Yes, it's true. Your time is rapidly being eaten up. What seems to be a plateau of time is actually an island getting smaller and smaller as the seas of chaos advance. To be present is to slow it down, and to be thoroughly present in a slackful manner seems to slow it down so much that it appears for a time to be completely stopped. A side effect, an epiphenomenon of what subgeniuses call time control. But it does proceed, and everything goes down the memory hole of oblivion, the process of catabolism, and the larger process of entropy. Where does it go? It goes into memory, into archival material, into our ability to retain a picture of the past. Only in quite a different sense, may we say, the past still exists and is preserved somewhere. Sure, in its own plenum, but we have dirtied our opportunity to get there by our constant pulsating heartbeats driving us further and further away from this earlier plane of existence. So it goes, but you can slow it, and you can make sure that as it is spiritually present, it will have no elements that can torment you, since what is done is irrevocably done, and as far as we know, cannot be changed from our position afterward.
Very good. A fitting answer for the end of another show.
And I spun the wheels again, and nothing fell out. Not even a flopping fish this time. I hate when that happens.
Well, Eh,
that usually the LSD is kicked in at that point.
Oh, it's that time of the show, is it?
the very best time of the show.
Well,
Well,
I
let's
have also.
remember we're
Oops.
going to be there for the after show chat if you want to
Indeed.
come by.
Yes, dear audience, please feel free to take advantage of that link. It is in the Twitch chat. We would love to see you, spend some time with you.
One more time, let me throw it over there. There you go. That link that you just saw, that's the link that you need. Give us a couple minutes.
That's the one.
We need to go dress in something more comfortable.
That's right. Very good.
We'll all be
right.
sitting here in our feathered, night attire. Oh, Jesus.
You
I
can
want
pull that
picture
off
out of my
better than
head.
I can.
I want that picture out of my head. I do. It was seeing Hal and the Teddy just now was not healthy for me.
A teddy, you say?
Yes, yeah, it popped into my head as clear as could be. It was something I'm sorry,
right.
Hal.
My previous incarnation as a teddy boy.
I'm sorry, Hal. It is something I wish I hadn't have seen. I'm sorry.
Well, I wouldn't see it myself.
It was just not. It's not how I want to. It's not how I want to see you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's see. Let's spin those wheels one more time. But I think we're getting to the point where we're going to say we've got our show closing coming up. Nope, nothing else in the queue. Nothing else drops out. So we have.
Well, there's always the next two.
Now, that doesn't mean the show is over. We've got more stuff. We have a new show closing, which you might want to stick around for because I think it's a lot of fun to watch. And
Seasonally appropriate.
We are probably the only show who tells people, you really probably want to stick around for our closing. Don't leave during the credits.
Stick around for the credits.
It's actually worth
On the
watching.
other hand, a lot of people like to leave before the credits of the movie have shown, and thus they miss all those Easter eggs and post-credit sequences, which they tend to slip in.
Now, there is something kind of interesting that occurred to me. The night before Christmas piece that we showed, that is a East Coast thing, mostly like Philadelphia area. That was big around here.
Mm-hmm.
And the animation that we're showing at the end, Gofflin, you were saying was big in your childhood.
Actually, big in my partner's childhood in Chicago, so a Midwestern phenomenon.
A
So
Centaur production, was it not?
Exactly, yes, indeed. So, those of you from the Midwest may recognize it. Possibly, we'll see.
You won't recognize the song that goes along with it, though. We did pop that out and popped in a new one.
Had our own commentary, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Flair. We add our own flair to it, and also copyright protection. Copyright protection.
Exactly. We did we did the incantations. It's fine.
Yeah, we did the copyright banishing ritual. So anyway, I think you'll like it. The music is a little hipper than what was originally attached. So see, we're tantalizing the audience again. Pressure, just play it. Anyway, folks, it was great having you all tonight. Thank you. Happy holidays to one and all. Happy New Year. We will see you next year, 2025. I don't know how we've managed to do it so far, but we're just going to keep on doing it. So stick with us.
Or we'll see you sooner than that in the chat room if you
Indeed.
encounter us there.
Yeah, if you didn't get enough, you can have some more. So come on over. We'll be happy to hang out with you for a couple hours. So on that note, folks, thank you very much, and stick around for the credits. You won't regret it. And good night, and we'll see you January 19th, isn't it?
That sounds correct, yes.
January 19th. Well, the advertisement that's coming up will tell you exactly that. So, but
it will confirm.
We'll see you next year, and take care, one and all, and happy holidays from
happy holidays, everybody.
Please be sure to join us for the next live Ask Dr. Hal Show Home Edition, Sunday, January 19th, 2025, only on Twitch. Visit our website at AskDrHalShow.com for information on this, as well as where to find previous episodes. From there, Dr. Hal is only a finger click away.
A Christmas Poem by T.S. Eliot, The Journey of the Magi. A cold coming we had of it, just the worst time of the year for a journey, and such a long journey, the ways deep and the weather sharp, the very dead of winter, and the camels galled, sore-footed, refractory, lying down in the melting snow. There were times we regretted the summer palaces on slopes, the terraces, and the silken girls bringing sherbet. Then the camelmen cursing and grumbling and running away and wanting their liquor and women, and the night fires going out and the lack of shelters, and the cities hostile, and the towns unfriendly, and the villages dirty and charging high prices. A hard time we had of it. At the end, we preferred to travel all night, sleeping in snatches, with the voices singing in our ears, saying that this was all folly. Then, at dawn, we came down to a temperate valley, wet below the snow line, smelling of vegetation, with a running stream and a water mill beating the darkness, and 3 trees on the low sky, and an old white horse galloped away in the meadow. Then we came to a tavern with vine leaves over the lintel, 6 hands at an open door, dicing for pieces of silver, and feet kicking the empty wineskins. But there was no information. And so we continued, and arrived at evening, not a moment too soon, finding the place. It was, you may say, satisfactory. All this was a long time ago, I remember, and I would do it again. But set down this. Were we led all that way for birth or death? There was a birth, certainly. We had evidence, and no doubt. I had seen birth and death, but had thought they were different. This birth was hard and bitter agony for us, like death, our death. We returned to our places, these kingdoms, but no longer at ease here in the old dispensation, with an alien people clutching their gods. I should be glad of another death.